In this episode of K24 Swapping a Miata, we fight a bolt, we go magnet fishing, and we install everything that we need to refresh and prepare our engine for this build. The first thing that we're going to be removing here is the timing chain cover. To do that, we first need to remove this pulley here, and then we'll move forward with removing the bolts to get this cover off. So right here we're removing that oil filter housing. With this swap kit we're moving that filter from down there up to this location up there. And there are just those 3 bolts right there that we need to crack loose and then remove to get this housing off.
Just like that. Next
up, we're putting this block off plate for the original oil filter location. That is a custom KMiata part that's machined and it's really nice. We do need to put the O-rings in there so it seals up, and then we'll be able to bolt this thing right on. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove all of the bolts that are holding that oil pan on, and then we'll be able to pop it out of place.
Ooh.
There it goes.
Nice, okay.
Alright, so now we've started to get the oil pan separated from the rest of the motor here.
Sheesh.
And there we go. Considering how black that oil looked that drained straight out the bottom,
yeah,
looks pretty clean in here.
Yeah, not too bad.
You probably saw us drop the oil pan after we had already flipped over the engine. We would recommend actually not doing that, because if you flip your engine over so the oil pan's on top, you're putting any debris that was collected in it back into the engine, and you want to try to avoid that. Rookie mistake on our part. Right now we got the oil pump loose. Now we did want to wait to get all of the timing covers off, but we were having trouble getting our crank bolt out. So we're waiting for some tools to do that, and we're just trying to make progress here. So we're going to see if we could get this off this way. So we were trying to get this little oil jet here off for quite a bit of time here. We put that little screw in there and we're able to pull it out. Now we got to take care of all these metal shavings.
Don't want those in there.
Nope. Don't want to see those things down the line. So they make this little plug right here that covers up that jet, because the new oil pump is significantly smaller, which you'll see in a second here. But it just fills that hole and then bolts down so it can't pop out once there's oil pressure in the engine. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this little baffle here. Did that just go down there? Oh no. We have lost the bolt down into the engine. Alright, Matt's got the harpoon gun at the ready down there. Going back in with the fishing rod.
You get it?
I feel like I got it.
Pull it up.
I got it.
Sweet. We're eating good tonight.
It's a big catch.
Sheesh.
Next up, we're going to go ahead and clean off all of this Honda Bond silicone sealer here to prepare this for the new oil pan.
I was literally hanging on it.
I hope that camera is on. I can't remember. I don't know if I turned it on. Oh, hell yeah, I was on.
Woo! Alright, ready?
Yeah.
Oh, it's turning.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's been a long time coming. All right, thank God for that. So we ended up using this special tool here from Amazon. That will be linked down below. If you're gonna do this, buy this thing. It took us way too long to get this bolt out because we didn't have it, but there it is.
4 feet of pipe,
yep,
and a 130-pound guy hanging on. There it is.
And the crank pulley is off.
And the Woodruff key came out with it. Don't lose that.
All right, now that that crank bolt and crank pulley is finally out of here, we're going to go ahead and remove the timing covers.
We're also going to remove the VTEC solenoid, because that sits right on top of it.
VTEC.
VTEC roll.
All right, it's never easy. We just went to take this one off and we noticed that like the bolt head is cracked off there at an angle. So we don't have as many surfaces for the tools to grip on, and we're hoping we could get this off without stripping it. Breaking the Clarkson back out.
Oh yeah.
Let's make some moves. Oh, nice. All right, let's see if we can get this timing cover off.
Oh man.
Would you call that one the original impact? Nice.
Whew.
Thank God for that bar this episode.
Jeez. Alright, so we can pull it off just like that. And up the rest of the Honda bomb brake. And there we go. Timing cover off.
Nice.
Look at that chain.
Oh yeah.
Jeez. Alright, Cash isn't here anymore, but we're still just taking the timing stuff off. And pull this spacer off. So this spacer is going to be replaced by the pulse plate for the cranks. Alright, chain off. Alright, we can grab the oil pump chain off of there too. Alright, so now what we're going to do is take this K20 Type S oil pump and add on this KMiata adapter piece that will let it fit with the stock steering rack. Alright, so once you get that oil pump on there, you can move on to installing the windage tray and the support bracket. You can also install the pickup tube that comes with the KMiata kit. It's just a bolt down here on the windage tray for the support arm, and then bolt up here directly onto the oil pump. You can also install the oil pump chain guide and tensioner right here. Alright, we've got the timing chain in place along with all the guide arms and the tensioner installed too. So I believe everything's lined up, so I'm going to pull this tensioner pin out, then we're going to spin it a couple times and see if it all works. Alright, there's the tensioner set. So let's spin it around a little bit and see how it does. Take get your spark plugs before you do this so that you're not fighting compression, but oh well, here's where I am. Alright, so on this side of the engine mount will bolt up around here and also down here, and the second part of the engine mount that bolts onto that plate will actually interfere with this little feature right here. So we have to grind that down. Alright, so on the exhaust side of the engine we have this mount here. Now that this side's nice and snug down, we'll move around to the other side. The mount's the bracket's gonna be bolting up right here. Alright, next we're gonna install the KMiata coolant neck on the back of the engine right here. Alright, so here we have our coolant neck kit. We have this nice machined coolant neck right here that has a few ports in it. We have the large hose adapter for the coolant coming out of it or going into it. We have this heater hose port, or optionally a block off if you don't want to run heat, but I'm going to be running heat, so I'm going to use this one. We have the gasket for the back of the coolant neck, and we have the Honda engine coolant temp sensor, the Miata engine coolant temp sensor off of the 1.8 that came out of my car. This one's just going to run the dashboard gauge, and this one's going to talk to the ECU. Alright, so once you've got the water neck on there and all tightened down with the gasket in place, you can add your accessories. You got your heater port or heater block off depending on what you go with. You got the big radiator hose on this side, and you got your two coolant temp sensors, Honda on this side and Miata on this side. Alright, so here we have the intake manifold from KMiata, and there are a couple of things I wanted to install in it before we get it in the car. Namely, I want to install the idle air control valve that you can see up here, and the throttle cable bracket down here. These will go in these two spots right here. And I want to do this while we have it out of the car just because they're going to be on the underside of the intake manifold and it'll be a little bit tricky to get to them once it's in the car. Put that right in there. Alright, and then it's just a matter of tightening these bolts down. Cash makes this look so easy, but it is so hard to do stuff one-handed while I'm like trying to look at the part in real life and through the viewfinder. Alright, and now we can move on to the throttle cable bracket. So this will sit right up here. And there are actually a couple more things we can install in the intake while we have it out here. Those being this vacuum port and the map sensor. So this port, very easy to install. Thread it in right back there. And you're done. The map sensor goes in this little cutout right here. Just working in gently, rock it back and forth a little bit. Take it out to dinner. And it'll slide right in. And then you've got your little bolt there to secure it in place. Now this intake is pretty ready to go into the car. Alright, so if you got the modified valve cover here, I'm absolutely in love with the way this looks. I love the wrinkle red. You can see what they did to modify it. They actually cut a little profile along the front edge here so that the hood will clear over it, and then they welded in an aluminum plate where they cut. So before this can go into the car, there's just something we have to do to it, and that's adding new spark plug tube seals right here. So these will sit on the opposite side of these spark plug holes right along here, and they'll just help seal the engine. Alright, so next we can work on the thermostat housing and thermostat itself. So here we have the thermostat housing, and I'm actually using a Track Tough thermostat adapter so that I can get rid of the big metal tube that's on the stock engine. Alright, so now we can join these two halves of the thermostat housing, and of course make sure that the O-ring between these two isn't pinched when you're doing this. Make sure it sits in there nicely. Alright, and now this whole thing with our Track Tough adapter is ready to go in the car. Alright, so now we're over here on the engine, and this is the port where the thermostat housing will go. Alright, so now we're going to install the oil pan on the engine. I've already cleaned and greased this whole mating surface, and we're going to apply a nice bead of Honda Bond to around the whole bottom of the block, and for the bolt holes we're going to go both inside and outside of them. We got the oil pan. Before you even start this procedure, make sure you don't have any loose hardware or anything in there. You can also install the upper timing chain guide. This is one from a K24 EP2. You need to use this if you're using the KMiata shaved valve cover. The stock one from the Z3 will not fit under that. Alright, you can also install the crankshaft pulse plate, and this will allow the Honda ECU to communicate with all the engine position sensors that we're going to use. Alright, so now that we've got all the stuff under the timing chain, or under the timing cover, all set, we can work on installing the timing cover itself, which is down here. So the timing cover is now a one-piece cast part. Alright, we're putting on the Honda Bond. Let's start doing some bolt stuff. I've also got this cover for the timing chain access panel right here, so I'm just going to put a little bit of Honda Bond on there and close it up. Alright, next we can install the crank position sensor. So it goes into this hole right here. And next is the the front main seal. Definitely put a little bit of oil on the outside of that just to help it sink in. Alright, I got that seal set in there. As you can see, it's nice and flush with the edge of that surface. I ended up just lining it up and tapping it in a circle around with this little rubber mallet. Alright, so now we can go ahead with the valve cover and the valve cover gasket. So we got the gasket already sitting in here, and there's only really one way this can go in, so just make sure it lines up and that's pressed all the way in. Alright, now we've got the valve cover on, and man, I just love how this looks. We have the new valve cover grommets installed, the oil cap, oil fill cap, and all the spark plug coils installed on there. Alright, next we can trim the dipstick. So I have this sitting in here right now, and you can tell it's too long because the part where it hits the oil pan is now shorter. It's hitting somewhere around here instead of down here, obviously. So we need to trim it, and you can figure out the correct length by sticking it in until it hits the oil pan like that. And then I put a little mark here right where it sits above the valve cover. I'm going to measure that distance mark the same distance on the bottom of the dipstick, and then cut it off at that point.
And with that, this engine is all prepped and ready to go into this Miata. If you want to see the next episode of the swap right now, you could head over to my Patreon page and see it live. The next episode is going to be the rest of the prep work that the car needs before we put this engine and transmission in. I also want to give a huge thank you to Matt for getting behind the camera for this video when I couldn't be there. I really think it made this video complete and really awesome. Anyway, I hope you stick around for the next one, and I hope you've enjoyed this video.